Nobody wants to be caught up in a vehicle-based incident, but sadly they do happen, and it's not just cars and bikes. Something that doesn't get talked about enough is that of trains and trucks, who can also be caught up in incidents. These are extreme dangerous train and truck fails. Number 20. Alleged timber trafficking truck collapses on wooden bridge. So it would appear that there are so many things wrong with this footage and the scene in general that it's hard to know really where to begin. It looks as though the bridge that's in use is neither fit for purpose, nor has it actually been constructed with the notion of supporting any kind of vehicle. The likelihood is that this truck should not be using it at all. There's speculation that this is illegal trafficking of timber in process, and that the driver's attempting to circumnavigate the main roadways in order to avoid detection by authorities.
Mandei ela arrochar que ela nem mexeu não.
The bridge may even have been constructed as a makeshift route in order to do just that, so when it collapses under the weight of the fully loaded truck, it's not only a pretty big fail, it may actually be this driver's just desserts as well. Since we're just doing a lot of internet-y speculating, let's hope that nobody was hurt and all nefarious activities were immediately halted. Let me know what you think about what was going on here in the comments down below. Or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Now it's time for the sweet topic. It's kind of a terrifying thing how dangerous a little bit of fog can be, because one day in India, fog led 2 trains to crashing into each other. The awful incident led to 3 people losing their lives. At the time this happened, fog-caused traffic accidents were common in India. Many transport networks had to shut down, and 10 people were killed in a similar train accident a fortnight before. As always, comment down below using the hashtag #SweetTopic and let us know what you think in relation to what we just showed you on the screen. Number 19. Fatal truck crash caught on CCTV. This extremely dangerous incident actually did result in the loss of lives, so it's kind of flippant to call it a fail. Let's at least attempt to have an ounce of decency and respect. I know, it's kind of difficult on YouTube. The CCTV footage captured the horrific moment that a large truck crashed into the car immediately in front and set off a chain reaction of vehicles that plowed into each other. 3 further cars were then demolished, and an additional truck also became embroiled in the nasty accident on a highway in Russia. Varying reports have placed the incident in India, but there's apparently evidence that's actually taken place in Russia. Whether this is necessarily something that requires investigation by nosy Parkers on the internet, well, that's still kind of debatable. Number 18. Runaway cement truck crashed into semi-trailer on Trans Mountain Road. Despite the wacky racist sound to this story, sadly it did not have a comedy cartoon ending for the unfortunate driver of the heavy vehicle, and to be honest, it's unfair to bunch this driver in with some of the hopeless ones on my list. The cement truck would be traveling along a Trans Mountain Road in El Paso, Texas, when it suffered catastrophic brake failure. The driver, Ricardo Marino Esparza, was desperately trying to alert other road users of the vehicle's problem, and he was blasting the horn wildly and willing everyone out of the way as the huge cement mixer sped out of control towards a red light at an intersection. Ultimately, despite his best efforts, Esparza could not avoid an impact with other drivers. The cement mixer plowed into an 18-wheeler and then continued to hit 3 other vehicles before coming to a stop. A terrifying crash would result in the death of Esparza and minor injuries of 2 other people. Number 17. Truck crashes into homes in northwest China. Again, an accident that resulted in the tragic death of several people. Do we really want to keep looking at these videos? It's not like a hilarious blunder without consequences, you know? What appears to have happened here is that a truck that was loaded down with heavy sand lost control in a residential area in northwest China. The vehicle then runs off the road as the driver loses control and plows into residential homes alongside the highway. The driver was instantly killed, and 4 residents were also tragically lost in the event. A further 3 people would be admitted to the hospital with serious injuries. Investigations into just exactly how it happened are still apparently underway. Number 16. 2 big trucks crash on highway in China. When you learn to drive, one of the things that you're supposed to be able to understand is stopping distance. This is basically math that determines how long it's going to take a vehicle to stop when traveling at a certain speed, depending on all kinds of different conditions like the road. Now, essentially, if the road is dry, then that's the optimum condition for stopping within the shortest amount of time, provided that your brakes work properly and there's nothing spilled in the road, and that you can actually drive. Beyond that, if you're driving in rain, it's going to take around double the distance for you to stop, and if the road's icy, well, it can be up to 10 times the stopping distance of a normal road condition. Now, nobody actually sits there working out all of these sums as they're driving, but these are things that need to be considered by drivers at all times. So when this busy highway in China was slick with rain, it became a dangerous and sadly deadly location. CCTV footage would capture several traffic accidents during the downpour. The slippery road led to an incident involving 2 trucks that were traveling at high speed, who then lost control and hit a chain fence. Number 15. CCTV captures moment of tanker truck explosion in Italy. When we're trundling around in our personal transportation, it rarely occurs to us that we are entering into an unwritten contract with every other user on the road. Namely, we will do everything in our power not to cause harm to others as we go about our road-using business. Most of the time, we don't think about all the various and innumerable hazards that might unfold in front of us at any given moment, which is probably for the best. If we did dwell on it all, likely as not, most of us would be cowering under our duvets, vowing to never get behind the wheel again. So I personally never really think about all the explosive stuff that's driving around the roads, surrounding me at all times, although now I don't think I'll be able to unsee this gigantic and terrifying explosion of a tanker on an Italian highway. This horrific incident would be captured by CCTV on a road near the city of Bologna in the north of Italy. The tanker truck was carrying flammable liquid when it exploded. The dreadful accident resulted in the death of at least 2 people and injured 70 others when a whole section of the highway actually collapsed. Number 14. Truck catches fire in tunnel. Driver avoids catastrophe. It would be wrong to characterize this incident as a fail, since it was the quick thinking of this truck driver that potentially saved multiple lives. This large articulated truck was traveling along a highway in China when it suddenly caught on fire inside of a tunnel. Now, a huge blazing inferno inside of a confined space is a really dangerous prospect, and this driver knew that fact, so he did a brave and selfless thing, continuing to drive the flaming vehicle all the way through the tunnel and out into the open air on the other side. The fire would then be extinguished safely, although the truck's load was beyond being salvaged. The main takeaway here was that the driver's actions actually kept other users on the road safe and prevented a huge catastrophe. Number 13. Truck spectacularly loses control and spills its cargo all over the lane. Driving on a rainy day along the Panchicho Pass near San Jose, California, a truck driver captured a totally bananas crash on their dash camera. As traffic slowed down, a large truck stacked with crates comes hurtling into view along the hard shoulder, careens out of control, and then tips over onto the slippery road surface, instantly spilling the entire contents of its load all over the place. Fruit tumbled all over the road into the path of oncoming traffic and got smushed into juice under its tires. It isn't clear just exactly what happened to cause the truck to wind up so completely out of control, but the result was captured on film in all of its spectacular mess and created a proper traffic jam. Despite the distinctly fruity style of this crash, other road users managed to make it home in one piece. Number 12. Speeding semi gets smashed up at the 11'8" bridge. A bridge that's also known as the can opener only gets a name like that when it has a habit of peeling the lids off of trucks. The 11'8" bridge is located in Durham, North Carolina, and is infamous for its unrivaled ability to draw overconfident vehicles of the vertical wherewithal into its grip. While it is true that there are a lot of signs leading up to this bridge, it seems to have more than its fair share of red-faced truck drivers awaiting assistance to unstick the stuck truck. In the United States, there's a federal government recommendation that bridges have a clearance of at least 14 feet or more, all on the account of the maximum height of a truck being 13 feet 6 inches. So if that was actually a rule, this wouldn't be an issue, except that it isn't. and heights of bridges vary wildly from one to another. So it's a bit of a gamble whenever a truck driver chooses to take their vehicle under a bridge, and that gamble increases to dizzying heights when the driver chooses not to read the low bridge signs. Despite a plethora of warning signs in the vicinity of the notorious bridge, as well as a sensor system with flashing lights, at least one truck per month plows right into it and provides great content for one of my favorite channels on YouTube. Number 11. Reckless driver missed exit causes 2 semi-trucks to crash. Wow, you know, sometimes a person can do something so irredeemably stupid that you can only watch open-mouthed in sheer horror. This driver is in fact one of those very specific sorts of plonkers. While driving along a very busy highway somewhere in the east of China, this driver is caught on CCTV camera doing one of the dopiest things that we've seen yet. Evidently realizing too late that they've missed their exit, the driver stops in the middle of speeding traffic. Yes, again, this human is an irredeemable idiot. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with driving or indeed driving on a multi-lane high-speed highway, but it should seem kind of obvious, even to a novice driver, that you cannot simply stop in the middle of the road with traffic buzzing by about 70 miles an hour coming up behind you. So when this driver decides that they'll just wing it and do a very last-minute turn back across 3 lanes of traffic to their missed exit, it should really come as no surprise that they cause more than just a little carnage. As the car slows to a halt, the lorry that's traveling behind has no options but to try and avoid a collision with the stopped vehicle. But unfortunately for the truck driver, their efforts were no help. This causes the huge truck to skid and slide and ultimately tip over, shedding its load across the road. Then the car driver, despite watching the truck crash in front of them, continues to turn across traffic to head towards their missed exit, and as they do so, another truck speeds down the carriageway behind them, attempting to avoid an impact with the dopey driver. It ends up jackknifing and begins leaking all over the show. Meanwhile, the driver that had caused all of the chaos in the first place just serenely drives off, leaving a trail of wreckage in their wake. Honestly though, what a dipstick. Number 10. Driver survives after being run over by his own truck. It is surprisingly common to find yourself in a sticky predicament with your own transportation, and even though you may wonder just how it is even possible to get run over by your own vehicle, his is actually something that happens all the time. Our brains do occasionally seem to fully malfunction and make us do some intensely dopey things, which is what seems to have happened to this truck driver in northern China. Captured on film from the cameras at a nearby petrol station, this is the heart-stopping moment when a truck driver realizes his vehicle is rolling towards the garage. He then runs towards the lorry in an attempt to stop its progress, but in his panic he seems to have forgotten the size-to-weight ratio of himself and his truck. That and the way that vehicles function, of course. So instead of leaping into the driver's seat and utilizing the controls, he attempts to stop the truck using his own body in some kind of superhero fashion, as if he were flipping Superman or something. It goes without saying that he failed, and then the truck actually runs over him in the process. Fortunately, the vehicle stopped just short of the building, and the truck driver himself miraculously escaped any major injuries. Perhaps he is Superman after all. Number 9. Bus crashes into railroad crossing gate. Now honestly, you really do have to wonder about things sometimes. Just what exactly is going on here is anyone's guess. Mine? Well, that would be utter nonsense. The footage here shows some questionable driving in which a bus plows directly into the barrier of a level crossing. The gates actually smash straight through the windshield and out of a window on the other side of the vehicle in an alarmingly impaling style. It's a flipping miracle that nobody on board got speared like a kebab, and to be honest, that alone would make this bus driver a contender for world's worst driver, but then it takes an even more weird turn. Obviously, the busload of people has come to a standstill on the train tracks, worrying for sure, but the next course of action must surely have been to remove the vehicle from immediate danger, right? Well, no, apparently. The thing to do here is to unload said vehicle, all while keeping it thoroughly parked in place in the path of an oncoming locomotive. Entirely sensible, I'm sure. As endless passengers disembark the stopped bus, some at a distinctly less concerned pace than others, I might add, it's clear that the train is still approaching. When the passengers are all finally clear of the railroad track, well, that's when the driver decides to reverse the vehicle back off of the track and out of harm's way. Right then, There's absolutely nothing odd about any of this at all. Just move along the bus, please. Number 8. Horrifying moment school bus driver gets his double-decker trapped on a level crossing. Now, this may be a recurring nightmare for the more nervous road users amongst us. Level crossings are really quite anxiety-inducing even at the best of times, so you can only imagine how the adrenaline flows when you're driving a massive bus and the gates begin to close while you're still on the train tracks. No, this is not just a bad dream that bus drivers wake up from in a cold sweat. This is bona fide footage of a school bus driver who found himself in this exact terrifying predicament one morning. But basically, the guy did everything wrong. Although he says it was the fault of the slow tractor that he was following prior to the incident, this is not a sufficient excuse for his insane driving. The law for public service drivers is that they should, on no account, enter a level crossing unless the exit is clear, so he got that wrong for starters. Mercifully, there were no children on board the bus at the time, as they had all just been dropped off at school. This could have been so much worse, but the bad bus driver ended up losing his job and got an awful lot of scolding in the British tabloids, as well as the usual online chastisement for his terrible driving efforts. Number 7. Train crashes into cement mixer truck that drove onto the tracks. In just 18 seconds of footage, a cement truck can be seen taking a seemingly deliberate turn into the path of a train. Just why it does is anyone's guess, really. The dashcam footage of a vehicle that was following behind the cement mixer manages to capture the insane decision of a truck driver to wing it and attempt a mad dash across the tracks as a locomotive made its relentless journey towards the inevitable conclusion. Even if the driver had been in some kind of super fast sports car, it's hard to see how he would have avoided a collision with the train. It must have been almost on top of him when he made that left turn onto the tracks, and it just goes to show you should always check your blind spot. Number 6. Train crashes into truck in Midland County, Texas, sending pipes flying through the air. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I'm of the opinion that trucks should be driven predominantly on roads that are designed with automobiles and that trains should reside on railroad tracks. The two opposing types of transport shouldn't really be coming into contact on a regular basis. It just doesn't seem all that safe. So just how we have so much footage of truck and train collisions is the tiniest bit unnerving, to say the least. Here's another genius behind the wheel of a heavy vehicle playing chicken with a train. Oh, such fun. The reports that followed the incident suggest that the driver had stopped to give way to other drivers, but that his truck had then broken down in a particularly awkward position, all splayed out across the railroad. The fact that a train might clatter straight into the stopped vehicle did give the driver enough of a nudge that he vacated his vehicle before the impact, although that wasn't enough for the train to take any evasive action, or even slow down a little. It seems to hit the truck at full speed, sending its load of pipes flying, as if they were nothing heavier than a few paper straws. Everyone was fortunate enough to avoid any major injury or death during this dangerous fail. An impact like this could cause a derailment, which would almost certainly have fatal consequences. I imagine there are reasons why the rules of level crossings involve such strong suggestions as ensuring that your exit is clear before you attempt to traverse the tracks. Number 5. Train hits semi-truck on railroad tracks in Pendleton, Indiana. The enormous and heavy trains that travel the railroads of North America are so very large that, depending on the speed that they're traveling, can take several miles to be able to come to a complete stop. So you really shouldn't imagine for 1 minute that a train can pull up before hitting something in front of it, even if it is visible from some distance away. This footage would be captured in Pendleton, Indiana, showing a semi-truck that's been left stopped on the tracks in the path of an oncoming train. There's literally nothing that the train driver can do about the impending impact. The train is just going to keep on going, and no amount of stomping the brakes can stop a train in a matter of just a few feet. So the train smashes into the truck, tears off the cab, and then continues some distance along the track with the cab still attached to the front. When it eventually squeals to a halt, the cab's on fire, and the flames are licking up the front of the train as well. It's utter carnage, and we can only be glad that nobody was hurt. Number 4. Train smashes into truck stuck on track. And here we are yet again with yet another massive truck parked in a stupid location in the path of an oncoming freight train. This footage would be captured when a witness to the scene was passing by and noticed the predicament into which a truck driver had managed to get themselves. The truck driver seems to have gotten the trailer part of their semi well and truly stuck fast on the tracks, evidently with a train fastly approaching. Like a nightmare or a scene from a movie, the train is sounding its horn as the driver fails to move his vehicle, and he leaps free from the tracks at the last minute as the train hurtles through, taking the truck right along with it, scattering debris in every direction. It was barely short of a miracle that nobody was hurt in this dramatic incident, but it did make an absolutely gigantic mess. The result of the crash was to reveal that the city of Atwater in California, where the incident took place, may have actually been liable for the accident. The poor placement of road furniture in the immediate vicinity of the level crossing may have contributed to the truck being unable to make the turn and clear the tracks. Sometimes the stupid part of these blunders begins way before anyone starts the engine. Number 3. Dirt bike rider leaps clear of high-speed train. As if there weren't already sufficient ways to accidentally die in Australia. You know, deadly snakes and spiders and sharks and bushfires and hellish temperatures and droughts. There are some dopes who are finding even more potential death options just for fun. These dirt bikers took their lives into their own hands when they stupidly underestimated the distance of a flipping great big train that was rapidly hurtling towards them as they flapped about on the railway tracks in front of it. Seriously, the incident was caught on camera as these riders were crossing a track about 60 miles northwest of Melbourne. One rider gets his bike stuck in the track and is wrangling it when the train arrives at about 100 miles per hour. We've already established that high-speed trains sometimes need literal miles to even stop. So if this guy doesn't move, then he's done for. Well, it seems he must have had a guardian angel watching out for him that day, because somehow the biker made it out alive. However, the poor train driver had a horrifying few minutes where he actually believed that he had hit the man, so that's another thing to think about, isn't it? Apparently, these goons were only a few yards from the crossing point where, and guess what? They could have crossed the tracks without risking life and limb. Who knew there were such crazy modern conveniences available in the world? Number 2. Rail workers narrowly avoid 125-mile-per-hour train. When even the rail workers aren't safe from speeding trains, you do have to wonder whether there might be something rotten at the heart of the entire system. It seems as though sometimes the clowns at the various train companies, and then their counterparts at the network operator Network Rail, don't know their arses from their elbows. And it downright sends my pet guinea pig Twinkle into a rage. In this hair-raising footage, we're witness to the moment when this group of contractors saw their lives flashing before their eyes, and then mercifully saw the speeding train flash by beside them. An investigation is ongoing, but it appears that corners were cut in keeping these workers safe so that the job could be completed more quickly. That profit margin is really all that matters at the end of the day now, isn't it? Number 1. British man almost hit by London train in shocking video. Wow, the insane judgment of this guy is simply mind-blowing. Just how he decided that he couldn't wait a few moments for the barriers at a level crossing in North London is a bit of a mystery. He takes a look at the gates that are evidently making a strong suggestion that the train is on its way through this location and therefore the thoroughfare is presently closed. However, he decides that this gate is simply not for him. It is merely for others. He doesn't require any such intervention, thank you very much, and he circumnavigates the barrier. Then remarkably unhurriedly, he continues his amble across the tracks as the train speeds towards him. There is a breathtaking moment when it is not clear if he made it or not. As the train moves out of shot, the man remains for a brief second, presumably as he feels the rush of adrenaline coursing throughout his body, before ambling on his way again. The footage was released by Network Rail as a warning of just how dangerous it can be to disregard the safety barriers at stations and on railway crossings. It might be boring to wait for 30 seconds, but just think of the poor person who will have to scrape you off the tracks if you get it wrong. That will definitely ruin their day. With so many insane and dangerous drivers out there, it's remarkable that there aren't just piles of crashed trucks heaped up all over the place and train derailments every 5 minutes, but these sobering moments have surely given you pause, and hopefully you won't be winging it across a railroad track at the last minute anytime soon.